looked at Caitlin Clark and they said when she was out over these 5 games with a quadricep injury, there was a diminished interest to some degree in the WNBA. I don't know how fair that is, but what I will ask you is this. Clearly, her return has obviously generated additional eyeballs. I have no doubt that the ratings are going to show as much.
The world of sports is driven by unforgettable moments. A buzzer beater, a home run, a knockout punch. But once in a generation, a moment arrives that is so spectacular, so undeniable, that it does more than just decide a game. It forces an entire media empire to its knees. That moment arrived on a Saturday in June, after 19 long days of waiting. It was the day Caitlin Clark returned from injury, and it was the day that Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's most powerful voice, got to deliver the world's loudest, most satisfying, "I told you so."
After taking 19 days off to recover and heal from injury, Caitlin Clark returned against the New York Liberty with a phenomenal, epic, legendary performance, something that the WNBA has never seen and something that sports fans only see once every 5, 6, 7 years. Some shit that when you're watching it, you're like, damn, this player, this person is having an outer body experience. This player has reached a new level, and I know I am witnessing absolute greatness.
For months, he had been a prophet in the wilderness, a lonely crusader trying to explain to his own network that what they were witnessing with Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie season, it was a revolution. And for months, he was met with a chorus of lukewarm takes, manufactured drama, and what many saw as a deliberate refusal to acknowledge the truth. This is the story of his ultimate vindication, the day a single, transcendent athlete became so powerful, she forced the biggest sports media company on the planet to finally open its eyes and confront the reality it had been so desperately trying to ignore.
Now let me focus on Caitlin, because the girl comes back, she does a thing, 32 points, 55% shooting, 7 of 14 from three-point range. I want to know, in your estimation, where do you rank her as a shooter in the WNBA, and considering her assist, where do you rank her as a player in the WNBA in just her first 1.5 seasons in the league?
Steven, it's funny because I was listening to your last segment where you were talking about Steph Curry and you said he's the greatest shooter God ever created. On Saturday, Caitlin Clark certainly looked like that for the WNBA.
To understand the magnitude of this reckoning, you have to understand the performance that forced it. After being sidelined for 19 excruciating days with a quadriceps injury, an absence that saw WNBA ratings plummet, Caitlin Clark made her return in a high-stakes showdown against the undefeated defending champion New York Liberty. The anticipation was immense. The game was on national television. The question was not just whether she could play, but whether she could reclaim the narrative. What she did next was not just a comeback, it was a coronation. In a performance for the ages, Clark didn't just play well, she played like a basketball deity, an otherworldly force bending the game to her will.
Fanatics also reported a 100% increase in sales for WNBA-specific merchandise. It started with Caitlin Clark. And so now that we know all of this, and we've known that for months, now we get to turn around and look and see what exactly is it that the league will do knowing that she's out for the next 2 weeks. I'm not saying I know for sure what's going to happen, but I have an idea.
She finished the game with a season-high 32 points, tying her career high with 7 blistering three-pointers, many from a distance that other players wouldn't even attempt in practice. But it wasn't just the scoring. She grabbed 8 rebounds. She dished out 9 assists. She was a single possession away from a historic triple-double. She took a team that had gone 2-3 without her and led them to a dominant 102-88 victory, handing the mighty Liberty their first loss of the season. It was a performance so complete, so spectacular, and so undeniable that it sent a shockwave through the entire sports world. It was a statement. The Queen was back on her throne, and any attempt to downplay her significance had just been rendered utterly and completely absurd. This single game became the moment the media could no longer hedge its bets. The truth was simply too brilliant to ignore.
The WNBA is literally living off of one player. Her name is Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark is literally the whole entire league. And I try to tell you fans, you WNBA fans who are so pig-headed at times, they don't care about Nafisa Collier, they don't care about Aja Wilson, and these Paige Becker fans, yeah, they don't care about her either, bro. It's all about Caitlin Clark. The ratings went down 50% because Caitlin.
This moment of undeniable greatness was, for Stephen A. Smith, a moment of profound and public vindication. To appreciate his last laugh, we must rewind the clock and chronicle his lonely crusade on behalf of Caitlin Clark throughout her rookie season and into her second year. While many of his colleagues at ESPN seemed hesitant, cautious, or even dismissive, Stephen A. was loud, consistent, and unapologetic in his praise. He was the prophet in the wilderness, shouting a truth that his own institution seemed unwilling to hear. From day one, he recognized that Clark was not just another player. She was a paradigm shift. He was one of the first and most powerful voices to argue that she deserved a spot on the Team USA Olympic roster. Not as a token, but as a legitimate contributor.
One day, the downfall of ESPN will be studied. I've been on this train for a couple of years now. I grew up absolutely loving ESPN, all of the shows throughout my lifetime with all sports. ESPN used to be just about sports. Look what the topic they're talking about this morning. Look at this. Look. Dak Prescott's legacy. Who the hell cares? You got the NBA Finals going on. Rafael Devers just got traded. And for a company that says that they love the WNBA, you just had Caitlin Clark come back and take on the undefeated Liberty and beat them in a game. ESPN is a joke. Anybody who takes anything that this station does seriously needs to also...
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. Fast forward to now, and Caitlin Clark is having the kind of season that
He repeatedly declared on his show, First Take, that Clark was a legitimate contender for the league's Most Valuable Player award in her rookie season, a claim that was seen as blasphemous by many who felt she hadn't paid her dues. He went even further, correctly and loudly attributing the league's newfound perks directly to her presence. When the WNBA finally announced it would be using charter flights for all teams, a major step forward for player health and safety, Stephen A. made it crystal clear who was responsible. They ignored the fact that they got chartered flights because of this girl, he would later thunder, calling out the veteran players who seemed to resent her. While others at his network talked about her as a rookie phenom, Stephen A. used a different, more powerful vocabulary. He called her a generational talent, a superstar, and the golden goose that was single-handedly lifting the entire league. This wasn't just commentary. It was a lonely, one-man campaign to force the world to recognize the magnitude of the phenomenon they were witnessing.
And Caitlin Clark came and put on a show, 32 points, the Indiana Fever, taking down the undefeated New York Liberty. And you know that media had to talk about it. You know that sports media had to talk about it after being ignored, after nobody brings up the WNBA while Caitlin Clark's out. She's back, and so is the media talking about the WNBA. Some things that the old guard just don't want to admit, but it is.
Stephen A.'s lonely crusade was made all the more significant by the backdrop of his own network's alleged media malpractice. As Caitlin Clark was putting up historic numbers and rewriting the WNBA record books during her rookie season, the narrative from the broader ESPN network was often bafflingly muted. This is the heart of the case against them. Instead of leading the charge and celebrating their new superstar, the network was accused of consistently dropping the ball. Viewers and critics pointed out how segments that should have been dedicated to Clark's on-court brilliance were instead filled with discussions about manufactured drama and fake rivalries, particularly the one with Angel Reese. The focus was often on the conflict, the controversy, and the personalities, rather than the breathtaking basketball being played.
Thanks to Clark, Indiana led the league in attendance both at home and on the road. The Fever averaged 17,035 fans at home and over 15,000 on the road. 4 teams moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. That's about Caitlin Clark. How do we know this? Attendance for the entire league was up nearly 50% last year. According to data from across the timeline, and Indiana led all teams with an average attendance of 17,035. That was up 319% from.
There were moments when Clark would have a historic, record-breaking night, only for ESPN's flagship program, SportsCenter, to lead with an irrelevant debate about Dak Prescott's legacy or a minor trade in Major League Baseball. For a network that claims to be the worldwide leader in sports, the refusal to lead with the single biggest story in American sports felt like a deliberate choice. It painted a picture of institutional blindness, or worse, a willful ignorance driven by a desire to control the narrative. They seemed determined to share the spotlight, to create a story of league-wide parity, even when the on-court reality and the booming viewership numbers told a very different story. The story of one player's singular, transformative dominance.
So if every team stays healthy, New York and Minnesota are still the favorites to meet in the WNBA Finals, but a Caitlin Clark-led Indiana Fever team like the one we saw on Saturday certainly could make things interesting along the way. And it is important to note that the New York Liberty were not only without Jonquel Jones, but Leonie Febish, another important starter for them. So they weren't completely whole, but even if they were, the way Caitlin played, the way Indiana played, Indiana's probably still coming out with that victory.
And that story, the one ESPN seemed so reluctant to tell, was being written in bold, undeniable numbers. The Caitlin Clark effect was not a matter of opinion or media hype. It was a quantifiable, statistical, economic earthquake. The data provides the irrefutable truth of her impact. In her rookie season, the Indiana Fever's average home attendance skyrocketed by an almost unbelievable 319%, with the team setting single-season attendance records. But her impact wasn't just local, it was national. League-wide attendance saw its biggest jump in over 2 decades, up nearly 50% in the games she played in. Teams like the Los Angeles Sparks, the New York Liberty, and the Seattle Storm all set their own franchise attendance records when the Fever came to town, with some games being moved to larger NBA arenas to accommodate the tens of thousands of fans clamoring to see her play.
Became the first rookie with at least 25 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds in a playoff game. That was Caitlin Clark. Became the 4th different rookie to play all 40 minutes in a playoff game. That was her. I'm looking at other things. 6 different league television partners. This is last year. This is last season, because this is Caitlin Clark that we're talking about. 6 different league television partners set viewership records that year, her rookie year, for its highest viewed WNBA game. Do you know every one of those games included the Indiana Fever?
The television ratings tell the same story. Every single one of the most-watched WNBA games since her arrival has featured Caitlin Clark. Her games on national television nearly tripled the league's previous average viewership. And when she was out with her quadriceps injury for those 5 games, the ratings reportedly plummeted by as much as 50%, only to come roaring back the moment she stepped back on the court. Then there's the merchandise. In 2024, WNBA merchandise sales surged by a staggering 450%, with Clark's number 22 jersey becoming the top-selling jersey of any athlete in any sport. She wasn't just moving the needle, she was breaking the needle. This wasn't a story of gradual growth, it was a story of a one-woman economic stimulus package, a fact so obvious and so powerful that the media's attempts to downplay it became increasingly absurd.
In Caitlin Clark's rookie year, for all of the conversation that surrounded her, some which was fair and some which wasn't, the one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, I was just about to say same thing for Angel Reese when I had a chance to cover their games. But I think Caitlin represented, and again, some of this to me probably is not fair to her because it was not anything that she said or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people.
This brings us to the comedic and awkward spectacle of the present day, the great ESPN bandwagon. After months of allegedly ignoring, downplaying, or burying her story under other narratives, the network is now scrambling to shower Caitlin Clark with praise. Her legendary comeback game against the Liberty seemed to be the breaking point, the moment when the force of her talent became too great for even a media empire to ignore. Now, the very same programs and analysts who were once hesitant to give her top billing are falling over themselves to declare her a true superstar and a generational force.
Done. We know what she brings to the table. But people wanted to hate because why? You had a bunch of players in this league that watched this young white girl come along and take the league by storm. And they resented it because they saw the marketing prowess that she had. They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because of this girl. Instead, they resented it because they said, yo, we were doing stuff long before Caitlin Clark got here, and y'all wasn't paying attention then. But now the young white girl comes along, and y'all want to sit up there and shower all of this praise and all of this attention that was earned before she ever came along. The resentment is understandable, but it's not about Caitlin Clark. It's about what she represents. My point is,
It's a comical and transparent pivot, akin to watching a friend who relentlessly made fun of your favorite band suddenly show up to the concert wearing a vintage tour t-shirt, screaming the lyrics, and insisting they've been a fan since day one. The "we always knew" narrative is in full effect, and it is a source of great satisfaction for the fans, and especially for Stephen A. Smith, who now gets to watch his own employer publicly eat crow. He can sit back with a knowing smirk and remind everyone that he was on this train from the very beginning, while his colleagues were still standing at the station, wondering if the train was even real.
When Caitlin Clark was out with injury, were they talking about WNBA on First Take? No. Were they talking about the WNBA on NBA Countdown? No. Were they talking about the WNBA on NBA Today? No. Were they talking about the WNBA on Fox Sports? No. Were they talking about the WNBA on First Things First? No. Were they talking about the WNBA on the Colin Cowherd Show? No. But now, she's back, and of course, they are back.
To be fair, we must briefly and carefully explore the unspoken reason that may have fueled some of the media's and the players' initial hesitancy to fully embrace the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. The source transcript alludes to a sensitive but crucial part of this story: the resentment factor. The WNBA is a league that is predominantly composed of black athletes, many of whom have worked tirelessly for years in relative obscurity, building the league with little media attention or financial reward. Then, along comes Caitlin Clark, a young white girl from the middle of America, as Stephen A. Smith himself has described it. And she instantly becomes the face of the league, attracting a level of fame, endorsements, and media adoration that has eluded even the most accomplished veterans.
How receptive do you believe the WNBA is going to, I'm not talking about the league, but the players within the league are going to be towards Caitlin Clark moving forward now that we've seen what her absence, what kind of impact her absence provides?
You know, I don't know that the two things are necessarily related in terms of them recognizing what it was like in her absence, but there was a moment in that game on Saturday, probably my favorite moment of the game, and it happened late in the first quarter when Breanna Stewart was guarding Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark came down and cleared out the entire right side of the floor. You're going to see right here. Get out of here, guys. Get out of here. Breanna Stewart is a 6-time all-defensive player. They came down the floor after this moment, and they were just laughing.
This has undeniably created a palpable tension. The resentment is not necessarily a personal attack on Clark herself, but on what she represents: a perceived racial and cultural bias in media coverage and corporate marketing. Some veteran players likely felt that their years of excellence were being overlooked in favor of a new, more marketable face. This underlying tension may have influenced ESPN's initial coverage strategy, a misguided attempt to share the spotlight and appease the league's established stars, even when the public's interest was overwhelmingly focused on one person. It's a complex and uncomfortable dynamic, but it's essential to understanding the full context of the story.
Caitlin Clark is 1 in a million, and I hope this league understands that. I hope this league gets it through their thick skull that CC is the WNBA.
In the final analysis, this entire saga is a tale of one man's vindication and a media empire's public humiliation. Stephen A. Smith, by courageously and consistently sticking to the undeniable truth of what he was witnessing on the basketball court, has been proven emphatically and unequivocally right. He trusted his own eyes over the preferred narratives of his own organization, and in doing so, he solidified his position as not just ESPN's most powerful voice, but often its most honest one. His employer, ESPN, on the other hand, has been exposed for allegedly prioritizing its own complex agendas, internal politics, and manufactured storylines over the simple, powerful reality of a once-in-a-generation talent. The story of Caitlin Clark's rise is a powerful testament to the fact that true, transcendent greatness cannot be ignored, managed, or downplayed forever. Eventually, the talent becomes so bright that it forces even the most powerful and stubborn institutions to turn and face the light. Caitlin Clark is not just changing the WNBA, she is changing the way it is covered. She has become a force of nature so powerful that she can make the biggest sports media company in the world bend to the undeniable truth of her greatness, even if they are the last ones to join the party.